Welcome to another episode of Bionic Water-colourist. And I'd like to welcome you to another episode. And today's is called Landscape Basics. And so what we're going to learn about today is how we start to do a landscape painting. So at first, we're just going to quickly go through the different materials that we're going to need for this project. And if you have to, go round them up and we'll get ready. The first thing I just wanted to explain, one of the things that I like to use is I like to use a clipboard. So if you have a clipboard, might be well to grab one, but you don't necessarily need one. What we do need is we need paper. And so this is just basic photocopy paper. Now, I don't like ruining a whole bunch of sheets of paper by drawing on them. So what I do is I use the clipboard. And I have some lines on it, but that's not important. That's because you always want something to draw on. And now we have a fresh sheet of paper, and we're all ready to go. Now, just for the record, if you're not used to these terms, this is portrait, which means it's high and it's not very wide. Landscape is referred to as not as high, but wide. The standard sheet of paper is 8.5 by 11. So we're just going to use this. I also thought, if you people are watching this and have really nothing to do with your time, if you wanted to do a drinking version of the game, I would suggest every time I say the word basically, you have to take a shot. So, I wanted to talk a couple of things. Just a quick shout out to my only fan, Izzy. Well, I know you're watching because your mom makes you, watch. And I hope you enjoy this. This shot is coming from my palatial studio on my kitchen table. The purpose of shooting here, which is different than the studio that I'm going to go to, is that, it's the kitchen table. Where else are you going to do this stuff? So, the next thing I discovered when I watched a couple of the earlier versions, introductory versions of this series, that it looks like I actually have turkey giblets. And so I was quite disappointed in my aesthetics. And so as a result, I'm trying to hide my face from the camera as much as possible. Another point that I just wanted to get into was websites. I'm a member of Facebook groups of about a dozen different websites that are all about watercolors. And I like reading all the questions. So you find a lot of questions and a lot of different degrees of, beginnerness, if that's a word. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk now about what we need to get this thing started. So, as we talked about in our earlier edition, we said that we were going to find some different things around the house. So we have a Sharpie, we have another Sharpie, and we have a ruler. Now, we have another ruler, just for the record. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of ruler. It just a straight edge will do. So you could technically use another pencil. I mean, all you need is a straight edge. Anything made by a machine usually has a pretty good straight edge to it, like a piece of wood or, whatever. We all have a piece of straight edge. Use a file folder if you haven't got one. So anyway, we're going to start now. This is all we need. Just a brief part of the explanation of this is this gray is going to become the main color of the whole project. Okay, so that's what we're using these for. Now, black is going to be black, and white is going to be the white. So you're going to say, what are we going to do? We're going to try and do a landscape of a moon. And so we'll give this a try, and we'll see if we can't make a decent drawing out of basically nothing. Most people, they think when they look at this, they don't see a painting. But really, when you think about it, it's a polar bear in a blizzard, laying on the ice, with its paw covering its nose, with its eyes closed. So, we just did that. That was pretty lame, I know, but Izzy, the jokes don't get any better. Okay, so we got our sheet of paper. We're looking at it. We know that it's 8.5 by 11. So we know that's half. Okay. Now, this is the most important line you're ever going to draw. Now, this line here is called the horizon line. So what we're doing is we're really thinking that this is the edge of the world, right here. So this becomes this is the sky, or this is whatever. And this is, so they call this the background. And then this becomes the foreground. So whatever we draw has both. Now, sometimes we want to put the horizon line, we might put it here. And how that's going to do is that's going to make the foreground very small and the background very big. So if you have a big background, obviously you're going to look at the sky more. So which means your painting has to use the proper spaces in a way that your brain will accept them as being normal. So, for example, if you were to basically look at one end of the range of motion of your head. So we're just going to look to one side without moving your back. You turn your head one way, and then you turn your head the other way. And that's basically about a 90-degree bend in what you can see. Now, if your brain had to process every single little piece of information that was in between those 90 degrees, you'd go crazy. You would get nothing done. And so within a part of your brain becomes what is known as selective attention. And so selective attention is something that we can use as an artist to basically skim over things so that the brain will interpret it as being correct. So for instance, if you drew a popsicle tree amongst a whole bunch of popsicle trees, all of a sudden your brain automatically makes the leap that if they're green lollipops, that these things are trees. Because that's what trees look like. If your brain studied every single leaf of every single tree that you're seeing within that 90 degrees, as you pan from one side to the other, you'd go crazy. So your mind just says, yeah, that's a tree. That's a tree. Or if you're looking right now in your kitchen, yeah, it's going, yeah, that's a fridge. It just becomes background. But if you don't have the background right, your brain will catch it. That's why stuff like perspective is so important. And this horizon line is the beginning of what we'll call perspective. So we're going to do a moonscape. So we have to pretend that we're now on the moon. I read a lot of these websites on Facebook, and the people talk about, when they get to this stage, they get the paper ready and they're ready to paint, and then they got nothing to paint. They can't think of anything. Well, you should have an idea of what you want to draw before you start to draw. And that mental process is what you need to be able to finish your drawing. So you paint it in your head before you ever put the pen to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a moonscape, and so you can use. Now, if you'll notice, I just want to point this out, that I shake like it's going out of style. So please forgive me. It's all because of my medication that I'm on, that I shake. I have all these medication things. But unfortunately, I can't do anything about it. So now, this is a circle. Now, we know that it's a roll of electrician's tape. Now, everybody should have a roll of electrician's tape hanging around, but Scotch tape will do. So, a wine glass, if you're older, will work even better. But this is the right size. Now, I want you to look at this circle here. So, if you look at that, that's a circle. And that makes sense. Now, but if you look at my tape, okay, as I turn my tape, you can see that that now becomes an ellipse. So perspective is always based on what your eyes see. And so what is really important about this is that we have an angle from which your eyes are viewing the subject, or in this case, the background. So this is going to be Earth. Okay. This is the surface of the moon. And of course, the moon is gray. So the gray is going to come from this. So pencil is the gray. The white is the white of the paper. And that's what we want you to remember, is that the white is coming from the paper. Because when we go to watercolor paints, this paper is going to make all the whites. So when you're doing oils or acrylics, you take white paint and you paint it, and then you add white paint to it, and you make it lighter by adding white paint. Well, we don't do that. What we do is we let the paper act as the white paint. So it's the lightest thing, which means you don't touch it. And if you don't touch it, then away you go. So we're going to do this. I'm just going to draw this now, and I'm going to switch to super speed mode. And we'll catch up with you on the other side. Have a good one. And thank you again for watching Bionic Water-Colorist.